The Charlie Kirk story has been hijacked. That's right, hijacked. We're going to talk all about that on today's Charlie Crime Busters podcast. It is what some people are calling, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. The Charlie Crime Buster name and all forms and abbreviations are property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent unless or until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains adult subject matter. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Charlie Crime Buster. Today we're going to be talking about the Charlie Kirk story and how it was hijacked. That's right, how the story has been hijacked. And we're going to talk about that. But first, let me take a moment to welcome you to the podcast. If you're a first-time listener, we encourage you to reach out with a shout-out. You can reach me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. We'd like to check out our sponsor, and that is peacemakernetwork.com. There we talk about those brave men and women who actually rush toward danger instead of out of danger. I read this week where just almost 6 officers have been shot over the last week. So it's a very dangerous profession if you're in law enforcement. And also we talk about those brave men and women who come running with the sirens when you need help. The first responders, the firemen, the medical people, the paramedics. And we also talk about those brave men and women of the military. You read all about that at peacemakernetwork.com.
The following podcast is brought to you by peacemakernetwork.com. peacemakernetwork.com. Audio is provided by pixabay.com. That's pixabay.com.
So enough of the housekeeping. Let's get right into it. You know, our program's format today is going to be just a little different, so I hope you bear with us. Mostly, I kind of go fast-moving in this program, and we give you bullet points, and we move from one point to the next, and it's a very fast-moving podcast. Today, we're just going to take our time, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to talk about it. And I think we need to talk about it because this particular series that I thought would be over in maybe 1 or 2 or 3 podcasts, well, now we're up to 10 and more podcasts about this one story, the Charlie Kirk story. But there's something that's happened that's been quite unique. The Charlie Kirk story has been hijacked. That's right, it's been hijacked. It appeared to be that there was a lone gunman that got on top of a roof and took a shot at Charlie Kirk. The motive was he thought that Charlie Kirk was sharing hate, and he also had a trans lover, and so there was a motive for him doing that. There was evidence that placed him at the scene. There was even video where his parents recognized him. There was DNA, everything there for an open and shut case. But then the podcasters got involved, and one particular podcaster took this story and blew it wide open. We all know who we're talking about. It's not the elephant in the room. It's Candace Owen. And Candace Owen, of course, as we've talked about on the program, for many, many, many years has been in the forefront of the conservative cause. Didn't start out as a conservative. Actually, she was on the other side. Then she switched over to become a conservative leader. She was a President Trump supporter. She was involved in Turning Point USA, which is the organization that was founded by Charlie Kirk. But now, a whole different thing has come to be. This story about Charlie Kirk and how he would go from college campus to college campus and debate, how he would invite those with an opposing view to come in and talk to him, and he would talk to them, and he always talked about the fact that we've got to keep talking, and then when we stop talking, then that leads to violence. This story of a man who was really trying to get the message out there and was quite effective at debating people, by the way, suddenly the story turned into conspiracies. And all sorts of conspiracies. So, and in light of all this, while many people have been talking about it, from all the way from Tucker Carlson to the Kelly Show, all of this, the Megyn Kelly Show, all of this, and many, many, many more, many, many more. But one podcast has come to the very top of the heap, and that's the podcast that Candace Owens has. So we have to ask ourselves a question. How was she able, or how has this story been hijacked? Well, one of the reasons why her podcast is so popular is the answer to that. First of all, in and of itself, Charlie Kirk's death is a big emotional story. As we all know, he was a very prominent conservative person. His sudden death, shot before thousands of people, and then online and on the media and on television and mass production of that shooting, suddenly it is a big emotional story. And Owens is now taking her episodes and she's investigating and questioning the official narrative. And when you investigate and question the official narrative, and she, appears to say on her podcast that people don't want her to do this and they're telling her to stop. We've never told her to stop. I would just hope she would be a little more responsible. But when you're investigating and questioning the official narrative, well, that taps into a lot of public curiosity. It taps into our grief. And it certainly taps into conspiracy thinking. And then she takes this entire story and she makes suggestions that it may be a federal conspiracy. She talks about all kinds of powerful interests. And the way she comes across it, she says, trust me, I have sources. Oh, that's very compelling to people. Especially people who already have a distrust of mainstream institutions. Then you take all of this and you put it on social media. And they're widely shared on the platforms. On X, YouTube. And it always bringing more and more listeners in. And then those viral moments, they feed back into more downloads, and that in turn boosts her rankings. Now, I'll tell you how much it boosts them. Now, according to Podscribe, Candace averaged, now listen to this, 3.5 million downloads per episode in October of 2025. It definitely puts her at number one in the downloads and views per episode. Did you hear that? 3.5 million. Now, some people are reporting that 3.5 or 3.6 million per episode indicates a 25% increase month over month. So this is perpetuating. There's more and more and more to it. In one report, the podcast reached 28.9 million downloads in a month. Now, comparison, the same report, they do note that Joe Rogan's show got 49.3 million in that period. So her YouTube channel, by the way, which also drives a lot of our podcast audience, well, it has 5.6 million subscribers. And it also has, now listen to this, 1.1 billion, I didn't say million, 1.1 billion total views per that same audit. So there's a very strong video-based audience, which contributes also to the podcasts. And so this is by far, for Candace Owens, this particular topic on Charlie Kirk is one of the contributing factors to this phenomenal increase in downloads. This story is resonating, and this story is certainly boosting Candace Owens and her podcasts. So, no doubt about it, this story has been hijacked. It's no longer a story about Charlie Kirk and the good that he's been doing all over the world. It's more of a story now, or bad if you're one of his enemies and you don't like the fact that he has certain beliefs that you don't agree with. Whichever, we do know that the story is no longer about Charlie Kirk. The story now has been hijacked. The story now is about all kinds of conspiracies. And these conspiracies have hijacked the real story of Charlie Kirk. Now, we're going to get into some of those conspiracies in just a moment, but we always like to take a moment on the podcast, and we like to pause, and we like to kind of lighten the load a little bit and share with you what we call Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, as you can imagine, when people are going through airports, they are able to find all sorts of things. You could imagine many of the crazy things that they find. Well, this one happened in Colombia, and you probably already know where we're going with this one. But Colombian police are now telling us that they apprehended, get this, a 40-year-old man smuggling several bags of cocaine. And the police said the suspect was detained at one of the airports on Monday as he prepared to board a flight to Amsterdam. Now, the scanner revealed the hidden cargo, and that was 220 grams of cocaine packaged in small bags. Now, police estimate the street value of the drugs at approximately, $10,500 on European markets. And the police video it released on Monday, it captured the moment, now get this, hang on to it, an officer wearing blue gloves carefully, here's where they found it, he carefully removed the suspect's wig with scissors. And under that wig, there was approximately 12 packets of cocaine. And these police statements confirm the suspect's prior criminal record. Well, he also had, surprise, 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 2 previous drug trafficking convictions. So this man who decided that he was going to be smart and he was going to get cocaine all through the scanners by hiding it under his toupee, he is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Okay, now let's get right back into our focus today. Now, we have been covering this for several weeks, so you know a lot of the things that we've already covered. The biggest thing this past week that has come from Owen's podcast has basically been a lot more emphasis on these planes. These planes that she is tracking all over the country, and a couple of those planes landed there in the same area there where Charlie was killed in. And she basically has determined that one of the planes is an Egyptian plane. Now, she then tracks that plane to another place, and she's even saying that these planes have been following Eric Kirk all around the country. Well, there's a lot of problems with this theory, and we can get into that in a moment, but that's one of the things that she's been talking about. And kind of an explosive tweet from her this week, or another communication from her, she's now convinced that the French people, the country of France, actually has taken a hit out on her, and that the country of France, the leadership of France, wants to take her out just like Charlie Kirk was taken out. And what is amazing is that these theories are everywhere. I mean, she has suggested that involved in this conspiracy to kill Charlie Kirk, she has actually pointed her finger at the Israeli government. She's pointed her fingers at the Egyptians. She's pointed her finger, not only that, but at the American government, said even our government's involved in it, talked about the fact that, hey, what we do in America is we kill somebody, then we give them a holiday. I mean, she's pointed out that this is a federal conspiracy, that all these people are involved. Israel, France, Egypt, all these people are involved in taking out Charlie Kirk. And the problem with all of this is there's no real evidence that connects any of this to the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Planes were in the area. Well, there are a lot of planes that were in the area. There's thousands of planes in the area. but she can find one or two and kind of, connect that to a country, and then suddenly this country's involved in the shooting of Charlie Kirk. She's also suggesting that his own organization, that they're trying to cover up stuff and that they're involved as well. And even the religious area, this Calvary Chapel, which she really has been pointing out a lot of the faults of Calvary Chapel and a lot of suspicion on that. So the Israeli country's involved in it. The Egyptians have their planes. The American people are involved in it. The French people are involved in it. And it just goes on and on and on and on. The problem of all of this is, again, there's no real evidence tying any of this to the shooting of Charlie Kirk. The one lone gunman, we have him placed at the scene. We do not have any of these other people placed at the scene. The nearest that she can get is the airport, where people pass through the airport all the time. We do not have DNA of any of these other people tied to the scene. We do have DNA of this lone gunman. So the evidence is lacking. And when she just says sources that I trust told me this, well, that's good on her part, but that's not good on our part. Who are these sources? Who are these people? One of the addresses that actually she threw out and that was actually sent to her actually led back to the address of one of her attorneys. So the idea is that these conspiracy theories are all over the place. It's almost like you're throwing mud against the wall and hoping something will stick. Everything becomes a conspiracy. Behind every tree becomes a bad person. There is a ghost behind every tree. Everywhere you turn, there's a conspiracy. The whole world is under control of something else. Not governments, but this whole somehow organized group of people are controlling the world. And that's where we are getting now with Candace Owens. And even one of the things that she relies upon when she talks about she's getting this motivation is that she had a dream. And because she had a dream, that she believes that certain things are happening. So we got to talk about this. What could possibly be the motives behind Candace Owens? She's a very clever person. She's a very smart person. She has a lot of passion. And so what is it that's driving her, bringing about all this information that has just enough to really catch your attention? It's tantalizing. It catches your attention. And if you are a person who has a tendency to believe in these deep state conspiracies, then certainly this is information that you have an appetite for. So why is she doing this? What are the possible incentives behind why Candace Owens is pushing conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk's death? And they are pretty tangled, my friend, pretty tangled. So, one of the motives we've got to really point out is personal grief and loyalty. Now, Owens and Kirk were reportedly close friends, and this personal connection really could make her more emotionally invested in getting the real story out. And that's what we're hearing from her. Hey, this is my friend. This is somebody that was important to me. And she feels, no doubt, betrayed, not just by his death, but by the narrative around it. So this might really genuinely be coming from a place in her heart that she really wants to really honor his memory on her own terms. Her own terms is, I'm going to investigate everything. I'm not going to leave one rock unturned. And I'm going to look at every possibly place I can possibly go. Again, she said she had a vivid dream about Kirk told her that he was betrayed. And she does believe that it's inevitable that is going to be revealed. Does she really believe that? Is that really there? That could well be part of her motive. The second part of her motive is the fact that she, as along with a lot of others, really doesn't trust official narratives or institutions. And there have been certainly times when we have found that the government and institutions have let us down. And she comes back and she's arguing that there are gaps in the official investigation. She's questioning the weapon type. She thinks that there's more than one shooter. She hints at FBI, possible FBI or law enforcement management or cover-up, again, because of this fact that she doesn't trust these institutions. She frames the death as part of a federal conspiracy, not just an isolated crime like the narrative is from law enforcement, but that there must be a conspiracy. And when she does this, when she pushes this kind of thinking, well, this actually will strengthen that narrative that she supports, that powerful institutions, government agencies, deep state, hide the truth, especially when conservative people are involved. And so the critics, well, they see this as her play into what we might say an anti-establishment type of things. And so it does get a lot of traction. Then there's another reason, and I don't quite understand this totally, but it appears to me that she really has a political, ideological conflict over Israel. And this is one of her central claims. And she does talk about the fact that Kirk was under pressure from pro-Israel donors, considering even people like Bill Ackerman and others, and that he was beginning to soften on his pro-Israel stance before he died. She's even says, and it's probably true, that he declined a ton of money that was meant to influence Israel policy. And so then she may come back and think that, well, there's a real motive there, and so she ties that to this battle, one faction pushing hardline pro-Israel policy and another more critical or a more independent approach to Israel. Now, did Charlie Kirk support Israel? Absolutely. Did Charlie Kirk support everything about Israel? No, he did not. And he was actually trying to talk to Israel, the prime minister, mentioning to them that there are a lot of people who have problems with what has been happening in Israel lately. A lot of people want this war to stop. A lot of people feel like too many innocent people have died. And of course, she feels very strongly about this. And so when she puts herself in this fight, we could see that this is her way of influencing other people in the conservative movement, especially how Israel and its donors interact with the right-wing movement, how they do try to push this. I know that this is true. Back in my previous life, I had a trip to Israel. This was a long time ago, when they were in this strife with Lebanon, and they were in the war with Lebanon, and Israeli people felt like they weren't getting treated right in the press, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to go on an expense-paid trip there to look. Now, I wasn't doing a podcast. I didn't have any political influence of anything, but because of my leadership, I was invited to attend this trip. So Israel has been doing this for years and years and years. But does this mean that they would try to influence America by taking somebody out in America on American soil? I don't believe so. Why would they risk alienating the best friend they have in the world? Why would they do that? But there is that narrative that is being pushed by Candace Owen and others as well. And of course, we do know there is also the incentive for any podcaster to grow their voice influence and lead the narrative. And by this way, she certainly, I would say, not only does she is a major player in channeling all this stuff that's happening, the grief, the outrage, the suspicion. This media coverage amplifies her reach. And some people are saying, some critics basically are saying, that pushing this conspiracy is boosting her podcast. Well, we know it's boosting her podcast, no doubt about that, because controversies like this does drive attention. It drives engagement. It drives donations. And all of this is happening. And, when she gets up and says, I want the roommate's alibi right now, it gives her almost a watchdog role. I'm watching out for all of this. And all of these things are happening. And so And then again, by promoting her version of what happens, she could also be trying to control the narrative around his legacy. He's not just a friend, but she knows what Kirk really believed, especially in private, and she wants to get this out. Then, on top of this, you have to recognize, too, that she was let go from Charlie's organization, Turning Point, and they have kind of pushed her out. They didn't even invite her to have a part of Charlie's memorial service. So now she's also turned her investigation straight toward Turning Point USA. She's looking at their finances. She's looking at everything about it. She's looking at the person who's going to particularly take Charlie's place. Everything Turning Point USA is doing now is under her investigative eye. So here it is, folks. This story has been hijacked. And I've got to keep coming back as a law enforcement official myself, as retired. I've got to keep coming back to the fact that there is no doubt about it in my mind. The investigation is being conducted with integrity. Sure, there are some things that they are not going to share. Just because Candace Owens, myself, or anybody were to demand an answer to questions that we have doesn't mean that the government's going to stop and somehow, some way tank their investigation or show their cards before they get to court. Their responsibility is to take this crime all the way to court to get justice for Charlie Kirk. And that is their motive. That is, if they're going to reveal something, they're going to reveal it in a way that's going to help them win that case. If they're not going to reveal it, they're going to keep that close to their vest in a way to help them win that case. You got to go back to the facts. This guy, this one lone gunman, he was there at that place. His parents recognized him. The rifle was found with his DNA on it. That rifle was recognized by the father as the rifle that his grandfather gave him. So if you believe that all these countries, that Egypt somehow had a paramilitary group of people there to assassinate Charlie Kirk, and that somehow that happened, you would have to think that out of coincidence, all of a sudden, this guy who has a trans lover decides to take out Charlie Kirk and just happens to end up at the spot on top of the roof, shoots a rifle, takes the rifle, hides it, leaves a screwdriver where he broke down the rifle on the roof, again, that had his DNA on it, puts the rifle in the bushes, and they find it that has his DNA on it. He sends a text to his trans lover and admits that I did it, that he took out Charlie Kirk, tells him why he took out Charlie Kirk, talks to his family friends, decides to turn himself in because they knew that they were looking for him. Now, how could all of that happen at the same time that suddenly there was a paramilitary group of people sent there to this little town in Utah to take him out? And if they were going to take him out, why would they take him out in such a public way? Well, you say it's going to send a message. Going to send a message to Candace Owens. Going to send they didn't have to risk doing that in public to do that. They could take him out just like the guy did with the insurance guy, one-on-one. There's other ways to do that. I just don't buy it. I don't buy the conspiracies. Does she have a right to mention those? Yes, if she can find something that's true there and she can prove it with reliable information, and it can be proven, then more power to her. But folks, don't go down these rabbit holes with a blindfold on. Check out these stories. The only story that's really, really getting traction with real evidence behind it is that a lone gunman took out Charlie Kirk. Well, we've been talking about it today, and this story has been hijacked. It's been hijacked, and I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm saying it really is disappointing to me that instead of us talking about Charlie Kirk and what he did and how he tried to get both sides to come together and debate and how he did that in a way that is polite and a way that would listen to his own people or the other people on the other side of the story, and he would give them opportunity to say their side, and then he would come back with this side. That is beautiful. I mean, today, the country is so divided, and people will not talk. They just throw insults at each other instead of sitting down and talking and debating the real issues. That's what Charlie Kirk did. And that story has been hijacked. Not blaming anybody per se, but that story has been hijacked. Does Russia, Iran, China, are they too behind pushing these conspiracy theories to cause, again, more divide with the American people? Yeah, I think so, don't you? You bet your life, I think they do. Does Candace Owens think that she's being used by these countries? No, not in my mind. I believe that she thinks in her mind that she's pursuing the truth. And I think that's where we are. Well, until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert. The life you save may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional information and podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. We would like to thank our sponsor, the Peacemaker Network, and also encourage you to support the first responders, military, and law enforcement personnel by contributing to the Peacemaker Network. That's peacemakernetwork.com. All music and sound effects are courtesy of Pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com. You can also support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, tag @CharlieCrimebuster, and then click the subscribe button. By doing so, you'll be notified each time we drop one of our shows. Another more convenient way for you to listen to our podcasts, or for you to say to your smart speaker, play Charlie Crimebuster. If you have comments or suggestions, we would love to hear from you, so please send them to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, or you can call or text us at 407-917-2211. That's 407-917-2211. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you will join us again for another exciting crime episode with Charlie Crimebuster.